Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for being there on this beautiful Tuesday morning, at least in Brussels. We are here for a webinar focusing on cultural tourism in post-COVID cities. My name is Julie Hervé. I'm a senior policy advisor at Eurocities. And Eurocities is the European network of large cities. We're based in Brussels. And together with partners, we manage Cultural Heritage in Action, the EU funding program, peer learning program on cultural heritage for cities and regions that is financed by the European Commission through the Creative Europe Network. So we are together for 1 hour and a half. We will explore new trends in cultural tourism in cities after the pandemic. We all know that tourism is one of a city's major economic assets, that it contributes to the local economy, but also generate downsides such as over-tourism, pressure on the use of public services and on housing prices sometimes. So now, while Europeans and many of us are starting to travel again, is a good moment to reflect on urban tourism and developing practices. Key questions for us this morning will be: what are current trends in cultural tourism in cities, and how to develop a more sustainable cultural tourism in our cities and regions, taking into account sustainability and environmental issues. So you will hear from two inspirational examples and from one keynote speaker. A bit of housekeeping. This meeting is recorded, so it will be available on the Cultural Heritage in Action website. Please mute yourself if you're not speaking. If you would like to ask questions, please use the raise hand button on your screen, or you can also type your questions on the chat, and we will take them after each of the presentations. So let's move on and welcome our first speaker, Jan van der Borg. Jan, good morning. I see you on the screen. You are a visiting professor in tourism management at KU Leuven University in Belgium, and also a professor in applied economics at the University of Ca' Foscari in Venice, plus many other roles that you may want to explain that are linked to EU-funded projects and research projects on cultural tourism in cities. Jan, the floor is yours. You will focus on current trends on cultural tourism after the pandemic, and we look forward to hearing from you. You have around 15 minutes, and we will then be taking questions.
Thank you very much, Julie, also for having me invited to this very interesting webinar. We are actually going indeed back to normal, so these will be the last sort of historical webinars that we're going to organize, I hope, because I'm really sick and tired of webinars and lecturing online. I'm not going to bother you with all the stuff that I'm doing, but I think one of the relevant things you've already mentioned, I'm directing from KU Leuven a Horizon 2020 program on smart cultural tourism. And I think one of the interesting things of this project is that we have a sort of a window on a number of important destinations from which we can see actually what is going to be happening with cultural tourism destinations in Europe. But let me first of all explain what I'm going to do in these 15 minutes. I might even be a bit shorter than that, but I hope not. I'm going to talk about tourism development, urban tourism development especially, which is for a certain share also cultural tourism, about tourism before the pandemic, where the tourism industry and the tourism destination in Europe were heading towards before the pandemic. Then I'm going to open a very brief discussion on what happened during the pandemic. Also some of the moments in time in which actually travel regulations were being relaxed. I think about 2020, the summer months. Think about 2021 again, after the 15th of June until the autumn. And my last part of this presentation will be about some trends that I am seeing already happening in many important cultural tourism destinations in Europe, and what might be the right answer to face the challenges that actually this restart of tourism is actually posing to many urban and non-urban destinations actually. So let me just take you first of all into this discussion of what actually happened with the tourism industry and with tourism development before the pandemic. Now, one of the most important things, and I think you've already mentioned it implicitly, Julie, is that almost in the whole post-war period, tourism has been growing worldwide at an increasing speed, actually. We've seen the world economy growing by a couple of percentage points per year. The tourism economy was growing almost in all years after 1950 something by 2 or 3% more than that. In other words, within the global economy, tourism has always been indeed a sort of an even more dynamic and even more promising part. And that was what you were mentioning, the reason why so many, especially urban destinations, saw tourism becoming an increasingly important economic component in their local economies in terms of employment, of course, but also in terms of income, GDP, and in terms of infrastructuration. There's also a number of other sort of non-economic components that actually help to appreciate tourism development in these kind of places. What was, and I think this is a bit the flip side of this continuous growth in the number of travelers, in the number of people working in the tourism industry, in the number of tourism firms, and also in the amount of money that was actually earned in the tourism industry. The flip side is that the prevailing business model that was actually applied to tourism development almost anywhere, and also in our cities, and also in the cultural tourism industry, was that of the massive sun, sand, and sea model of the 60s. In other words, the success of the expansion of the sun, sand, and sea model during the 60s and the 70s has actually also supplied the tourism industry of cities and also the cultural tourism industry with this role model of tourism development that is actually based on a number of elements that actually have led to what you were calling over tourism. Now, let me give some of these dimensions. First of all, the governance and the policies applied to tourism, but also the management models that were adapted in many of the cultural industry tourism firms were erratic, and they were based on the idea that you could just leave tourism development to itself. You could just improvise, both in seaside resorts as well as natural resorts, as well as in urban destinations. So tourism policy still today is one of the weakest policy domains that you can find at the national level of many countries, at the regional level, or at the local level. Most times, the minister for tourism or the alderman for tourism or the vice mayor for tourism are not the strongest, the most charismatic policymaker in the teams of the different governments. And that is notwithstanding, surprisingly for me, notwithstanding the social and economic relevance that tourism actually possesses, both in positive terms, you mentioned them, income and so forth, but also in negative terms. And that is what has been called the flip side of tourism development, the over-tourism, the tensions on the housing market and so forth. Now, what we see in the same model as an essential ingredient is that quality is never as important as quantity. And that means that competition is always, almost always based on price competition rather than quality competition. Furthermore, last ingredient, which is I think very important to remember because we come back to that in our third part of this lecture, is that the local is the least important shareholder of any sustainable tourism development strategy. Just cite United Nations World Tourism Organization definition of sustainable tourism, and you will see that the local will be standing at the last place. It's first the tourism industry, it's the visitor, it's the environment, and then at the fourth place comes the local. Now, this erratic governance has indeed led to many situations of over-tourism, of tourism becoming a very disruptive element in the life of many citizens. The cases, the iconic cases can easily be mentioned. We have one person from Prague online, Venice, Bruges, Florence. There's a lot of places, Barcelona, Berlin. There's a lot of places that before the pandemic started to think about actually the negative aspects linked to an excessive pressure of tourism on local societies. And I would like to mention, to make things clear, that it's not only over tourism that is a consequence of this erratic governance of this laissez-faire kind of attitude towards tourism development, but also in many cases under tourism. There's so many cities that actually have a lot of tourism potential, but are not doing anything about that. Now let me go to the second slide to speed up a bit. This completely changed during the pandemic. These trends were wiped out from almost one week to the other, and what we now see indeed that, and of course, tourism is very much benefited by a stable kind of environment and no wars, no pandemics, nothing. But during the 2 years of the pandemic, and we are now fortunately on our way to a restart. The tourism industry lost 70 and 80% of its clients, of its GDP, of its employment, and so forth. It became really one of the mostly heard and hit sectors of the global economy and of our cities, of our economy in Europe as well. And for this seminar, I think it's also very important to understand that one of the other very hard hit sectors was the cultural sectors. You can imagine that cultural tourism was sort of double so hardly hit with respect to other forms of tourism. Now, this led not only to a quantitative kind of reaction, very negative, but also to some changes in the tourism behavior. People went closer to home because of travel restrictions. They stayed in more natural rather than urban environments. They were more active and less passive, more self-catered accommodation like apartments, sailing boats, campers, and this kind of stuff. Less hotels, the IKEA hotels that many cities of us actually are very acquainted with, more public, less private transport. But what I would like to really study, and we're still in a sort of a very early stage of that, is what of all this is going to stick in the next stage. So please go to the last stage, because that is going to be a discussion that I would also like to have with you. So what is actually sort of going to happen now? That is the big bet that I was be making in the beginning of the pandemic. Will the tourism become more sustainable and mindful? Will we be more aware of the negative impacts of tourism? Will we be more aware of avoiding sort of under tourism and this kind of stuff? And I I really, and not only me, but a lot of people with me thought that this big blow on the nose of the tourism industry and of also the urban tourism destinations would lead to a major revisitation, a major reconsideration of the practices that we have been seeing in our first slide. I really thought that this would be the reflection moment, the momentum to strive for a new business model, a business model that is actually based on quality and not on the quantity. The slide has this typo, but anyway, where cities were going to invest in added value, in visitor experiences, also in a win-win situation with the locals. But in the few examples that I have and that I've also been gathering through the Smart Culture Labs, in which we have Rotterdam and Lapland and Spain and Venice, Vicenza and Croatia, and the few examples that we have been studying more in detail, we actually find that this reflection has not been taken place. This reflection has not been was a mirage. It was not actually on the agendas of many policymakers. What I see is indeed that both tourists who really want to start traveling again. Let's have a look at the mess at Schiphol Airport over the past weekend, also because of management issues, of course. But there's so many people that now want to restart traveling, but also firms that are really sort of eager to make profit again and to make money again. That my fear is that we are racing back to where we were in 2019, and I think this is really understandable. It's a missed opportunity, but I actually still call upon the policymakers to sort of find a force to become a sort of a contrasting, a counter force in this play, and to favor tourism development strategy, especially in tourism and cultural tourism destinations that actually embrace the idea that tourism development is about the locals' living standards, the quality of living. It's about the quality of the tourism experience. It's about also the added value, about the premium pricing that tourism firms can actually adopt in such kind of a new strategy based on quality, and not about quantity, not about the numbers. And it's about indeed making tourism development finally more sustainable and also more mindful. And that is actually the mission of our Smart Culture, I think, project. This implies that the cultural tourism industry should be dialoguing much more intensively and much more constructively with the cultural sector. In most of the cases that I've been studying in my sort of professional life, I see that there is a sort of a wall between the tourism industry and the cultural industry. There are managers that actually are not interacting enough, and that is, I think, one of the main challenges for you all the next few years, is that to intensify and to get these two different sectors which have very different souls actually and objectives, but get them around the table and to design such a sort of a win-win strategy for cultural tourism in the coming months. I would leave it here, almost on time, so we still have some time for questions. Thank you again for participating and for listening to me.
Many thanks, Jan, for this very honest picture of the situation, how it is exactly now. I do have questions, but I would like to give you an opportunity to raise your hand and ask direct questions to Jan before I do. So if you do have questions, please use the raise hand button. In the meantime, we do. A question from Pellervo. You will be our speaker later on today from the city of Savonlinna in Finland. Pellervo, ask your question, please.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everybody. I was just wondering what is really sort of puzzling for us as in a destination is the sort of the nature of the restructuring of tourism. So in terms of different areas or destinations or different types of destinations or changes of balance and so on. So would you like to comment on that? What kind of changes are we seeing? And of course, it's related to circular tourism and responsible tourism development and demand, as I think as well. Thank you.
I think this is a very good question, and I think it is also best answered by many other persons who are actually online at this moment. But I think that there is a strong need if we want to really make the most out of our tourism potentials, and in this case, our cultural tourism potentials. I think we should sort of try to find together a new paradigm, and together means with the locals, with the local tourism industry, with the global tourism industry, with the policymakers, and with maybe some of the universities that have been working on these issues of what under what conditions destinations can actually call themselves sustainable or more mindful or more responsible. However, and that is something that bothers me quite a lot. There's a huge race now to get back to the non-mindful, non-responsible, non-sustainable tourism kind of process that we actually observed for many years before the pandemic. Amsterdam is full again, Venice is full again. I think also Prague, although I don't have any sort of direct empirical evidence. And I think that I actually don't see what kind of other disruptive moment we could have to start this discussion. So I'm also actually looking very much at you, both the cases that we're going to discuss today, what actually you are doing to make tourism more circular, more responsible, more sustainable in the places that you actually are responsible for. I do not see enough energy put into that process actually, and I'm Julie said honest. I would say pessimistic rather than honest. But I would really like to see from you whether you can just challenge my pessimistic vision actually with true and concrete examples.
So we do have colleagues with us from Prague and from Amsterdam. I don't want to put them on the spot, but if they want to intervene, I think that would be great. And we will also ask the same question to colleagues from Florence afterwards. We have Martijn from Amsterdam. Please feel free to react if there are in initiatives happening in Amsterdam to counter this pessimistic view. Feel free to intervene, or Andrea from Prague. No, not for the moment. Maybe later on. Oh, yeah, Martijn wants to intervene. Yeah.
For us, inhabitants have always been an integral part of city marketing. We are an organization which is in 2013 we from 3 organizations we became one, and all the components, inhabitants, residents, visitors, and companies are a part of our daily work. So we devised during COVID period an advisory paper which you can find on our website, where we identified which issues are hindering more sustainable tourism. So feel free to read that paper. And we are working together with City Council because we are separate from City Council. We are kind of a DMO, but with a broader mandate. together with City Council and all other stakeholders in the city, we're trying to find solutions. And that will take time. We have already been working for some years on spreading visitors, which is part of the solution, but there need to be other solutions as well. That's a small view I can give you in the short period. But feel free to read our advisory report. Might be helpful.
Could you share the link in the chat?
I'll look it up and I'll share it in the chat.
Great, thanks a lot. Jan, maybe one question from me. You mentioned the importance of governance, of local policies, and working with locals, with citizens. Do you have inspiring examples coming from your research?
For me, the most inspiring example at the moment is the government of the Flanders region. Actually, the new strategy of Visit Flanders, which is the DMO for the Flemish government for tourism issues. It's called Traveling to Tomorrow, and one of the really important novelty in this is not only this quantity quality kind of thing, but it's also that actually tourism development is not being perceived as a means to its own end, but as a means to enhance the quality of living and the wellness of the locals. So any tourism initiative that actually is not contributing to the wellness of the locals, which is much more than just saying I'm involving the locals in my tourism marketing or marketing policy, but actually every action is being measured by the impact it is having on the locals first of all, and then all the other criteria being sort of evaluated, like the GDP, like employment, like the money that the local tourism industry is making, and so forth. So for me, that would be, it is online too, Traveling to Tomorrow. There's also a very nice video clip. I'm working with them from the University of Leuven. And I think that is at the moment one of the most visionary kind of new strategy that is actually being implemented. Also, the Netherlands is working on a similar sort of strategy, Scotland. So there are indeed Bruges city. There are indeed very good examples of where this new strategy also leads to concrete new policy interventions, which are actually taking tourism policy out of this improvisation and promotion and marketing kind of sphere.
Thanks a lot. We have a question from Bart, or an intervention from Bart.
Good morning to everybody. It's nearly lunchtime, whatever you want. Just to begin, I represent the city of Ghent in Flanders. We could say that we can confirm what Jan is telling us about resident sentiment reviews. It's done annually by the Tourism Board of Flanders in cooperation with cities like Ghent or Antwerp or Bruges. The question is, however, what are we going to do with the results? During the time, they tend to, let's say, deteriorate, meaning citizens become more critical, although it's still, they're in general still positive towards tourism. But let's say that they become a little bit more critical, which is of course good. The funny thing was that the last edition was taken or held in the Corona year in 2021, when we had no tourists at all, or hardly any. But during that year, the citizens were extremely critical towards it. So we do not really know how to interpret the outcome. However, how are we dealing with the results on a policy level? I am, call it like that, policy manager here in the small team of Visit Ghent. We're only some 20 people with a budget of 600,000–700,000 euro a year. So it's not really much. Currently, we are working on a policy plan for extra lodging for, let's say, large-scale hotels, meaning larger than 16 available rooms. new hotels are in general more than 100 rooms. So, but it has to do with legal definitions as well. So how many are still acceptable in Ghent, and where do we want to place them? Which would be best? So I am project leader for a quite a large project together with urban development department, and now we join as well with economic department in Ghent, and the main concept is place building, how we can use tourism to make Ghent a better place, and how can we by using let's say tourism as a building stone for making Ghent a better and a fuller city. With full, I mean, don't want to say crowded with people, but you know, a more a more metropolitan city, because we are small, but we want to become a metropolitan center. And you know, despite its small size, to do so, we ran several for the lodging plan. We used several academic reports, for example, the resident sentiment analysis, many data, and as well as the model developed, I think it was by you, Jan, years ago, and practiced already in Venezia. So we ran it as well via
Bart Neuts.
we did it by Bart Neuts,
Yeah,
from RUL, University of Leuven. So we gave him the question, and he responded with very fine reports, which were difficult to assess in a policy context. So if I can bounce back to you and give feedback to you, maybe the model should be more policy user friendly. For me as a geographer and as an urban planner, it was easy to deal, but for policymakers, it's not always very handy what to do with the outcome of these calculations. However, we could find that there is, for example, still enough room for, let's say, X or A or Z, I won't tell the number because basically it's not of any concern. There is still room for growth. It doesn't mean that we have to fill it up with the physical potential growth, because you also have the resident sentiment. So at one stage you will have to have a sort of trench to use all the data and to make a wise decision. Yeah. So we want to make contingents in time, but then again, it's not our decision, it's a decision of the urban department to give building permits. So we need we have to find and be very creative legally to find the best instrument in which we can steer a little bit when and where new hotel projects may go ahead. Because even if you want, even if you would say, I can give advice in formal advices in building projects, I can give a negative advice for touristic reasons, but it will be overruled because there is no urban planning argument not to build a new hotel when there is legally place to build a hotel. So we have to change all the plans, or we have to develop a vision on spatial planning, especially for hotels, specifically for hotels. And this is what we are trying to do now. You know, the vision is written. It's not decided yet by the board, but once it will be hopefully done around summer, before or after summer, it doesn't matter. And then the urban planning department shall have to develop a policy instrument which they can incorporate in their decision making on giving permits. I think it's the only thing we can do in that field, because we, as tourism, we don't have instruments. You see, we don't have hands. We might have a vision, but we don't have hands.
Really,
That's also a problem.
Maybe a short response from you,
Yeah,
Jan,
just
and then we move on to
Florence,
examples
because
from
indeed
Florence.
this idea of over tourism already shows us that it's a relative kind of concept, because it's over means that you're above something, some boundary, some limit. And what we try to do in the model is to make this limit visible to policymakers. But of course, it's not to an academic to decide whether you have to stay lot below this limit or more. That is actually the planning department plus the mayor and the vice mayors. But I think the model is an interesting and useful instrument to exactly identify where the physical and economic and social capacity of a place actually lies. And then on the basis of that, implement a new strategy, a new vision of not only tourism in the city, but also of the tourism economy of the economy of that city at large. And that is something that some places like Amsterdam are actually not yet aware of.
Thanks a lot. So that's an exchange that I feel we could go on with for a couple of hours, but it would be also super interesting to further develop this in, this research applied to better local policy making in maybe a future EU-funded research program, thinking of Horizon Europe. There are very interesting calls on a regular basis. So maybe that's something for our network and our project to keep in mind. So thank you very much, Bart. Thank you very much, Jan, for your inspiring conversation. And I propose that we move on to Florence in Italy. Jan, you mentioned spreading visitors and its importance. So we have a perfect example from the city of Florence. So I will give the floor to Carlotta Viviani, also with Francesca Galuzzi, and both Carlotta and Francesca work for the municipality of Florence at the Economic and Tourism Promotion Department. So you will take us through a new app called Feel Florence, which objective is to bring tourists off the beaten track. So again, we will have 15 minutes for presentation and then time for discussion. The floor is yours, Carlotta.
Thank you, and good morning to everyone. Thank you for the very inspiring intervention that I heard it up to now. And I think that our intervention is very punctual in this moment because, as you know, Florence is a very well-known city all over the world and suffered of the problem of over-tourism. However, also naturally before the pandemic period started in 2020. But we already began in 2018 to face this problem and to imagine how to solve it or how to manage it, because the fact is that in Florence we have an historic center of around 5 square kilometers, and the 90% of tourists concentrated their visits in these 5 square kilometers. But Florence, it's something more, it's larger. We have 100 square kilometers of cultural attraction spread all over the cities. So the challenge for us was how to move people from the historic city center concentrated in 5 square kilometers and spread them all around the territory. Moreover, following a regional law of the region of Tuscany that invited cities to collaborate, invited the territories to cooperate, we have established the so-called tourist environment. It means that Florence is now the lead partner of a larger territory of 18th, 19th municipalities, and that's why we all together cooperate to create a new form of storytelling of our territory in order to invite tourists to visit something different, something more, and in this way to manage the tourist flows. So here in the slide, you can see some numbers, what happened after 2020. So we had a decrease in arrivals and overnight stays of around 80%. Then we recovered the half in 2021, and I can see out of my windows even now that in this period, in the spring 2022, in Eastern period, the city center is still really crowded. It means tourists begin to come again, but however, begin to concentrate in the city center. So we have to continue and move on with our strategy. Okay, so for what concerns 2021, the 96% of arrivals and overnight stays was made from European countries, and just 3% from extra-European countries. You can see that most tourists were from Germany, France, Belgium, Netherlands, and so on. What is the real challenge for us? First of all, I would like to link what the professor before said. The tourist experience is something really strictly linked to the social and economic recovery. But it's really important to match the welfare of tourist experience together with the citizen safety and citizen well-being, in order not to create a sort of war, a sort of match between tourists against citizens, because this cannot is not a good management for what concerns small cities like Florence. The historic city center of Florence is a tourist attraction, but it has to be a very live, concentrated of of the real life of citizen environment. So we are now enforcing our politics towards a concept of polycentric city. What we can do, we can transfer the idea that there is no only one city center. We have a polycentric city where tourist attractions are spread all over the territory. So we would like to attract new talents. We would like to attract new ideas of a regenerated Florence. It's not only and just the cradle of Renaissance, but it's something more. And also the city and urban renovation is developing so fast that tourists are also attracted by these new forms of art and of contemporary life. So the objective of the project is attract new targets of tourists, spread on wider territory, improve the overnight stays, and support the economic stakeholders in the tourist sector. This is the main challenge of the Feel Florence project. What is Feel Florence? Feel Florence is the institutional website, is the institutional app for the tourist information. But beyond, there is something more, because there is a smart tourism approach. There is a spread redaction of contents spread on 41 municipalities, because the Feel Florence project is a project conceived between the municipality of Florence and the metropolitan area of Florence. It means that 41 municipalities are working in the same project at the same level. So they contribute all to insert all info in real time in the Feel Florence website. They contribute in real time to spread all this info also through social media and through the app. The other aspect of the smart tourism approach is the tourist flows real-time detection. It means that in real time I have the detection of the presence of tourists through Wi-Fi hotspot in the city of Florence. I can monitor which are the crowded areas, and when the tourists approach at least 100 meters or 200 meters in the neighbor of the crowded tourist area, there is a pop-up alert. There is an alert in which we suggest some alternative places to be visited. This kind of alert system was very useful also in the COVID period, because this function is born to manage the tourist flows, but it was very useful also to detect the crowded areas in the COVID period in order to respect restrictions, in order to avoid crowded areas in the city. So there is, we have the phase one was made by hand, but now we are already in phase two. We have an automatic, semi-automatic system. The Wi-Fi hotspot detect in real time the tourist flows and concentrate all data into the app. There is a function named Skip the Crowd into the Feel Florence app, in which in real time you can see which are the crowded areas and which are the new suggestions of alternative itineraries that you can take, or alternative point of interest that you can visit. There is we are now performing the predictive function. It means that on the basis of the historic flows of the tourist flows detection, we will be able to have a predictive function in order to monitor also the reservation and to help tourists to plan their visit in Florence. So the strategic project is based on the territorial cooperation. We have 41 municipalities cooperating into the project, and we have a perfect interoperability with the promotional systems of the region of Tuscany. We have the real-time update, and the whole system is based on georeferencing point of interest and itineraries. It means that every day you can find a new input, new itineraries to be discovered, covering the whole territories, suggesting new place, new point of interest, and new activities and experiences to be experimented. All info are georeferenced in order to understand your itineraries also on the territory. The territorial involvement of 41 municipalities is really very important in order to produce a new storytelling and a new story selling, because we have to tell our territory, but we have also to sell it in some way. Something I have already described, that this is the Feel Florence website, the strategic project of the municipality of Florence and the metropolitan area is based on a co-design approach, because we work all together, and both the website and the app has been launched in July 2020, so in the middle of the pandemic. So we tried to implement it, and now we begin to see the results now, because tourists are here again. What's new? All info are in real time. 41 municipalities are cooperating in create and update new contents. There is an interactive attitude to manage the website. There is a function of open data access. All the point of interest, all the data sets are exported in open data and are accessible to everyone. All the website is based mainly on new itineraries and experiences. You can find everything in the website, but we suggest something different. We suggest a new approach, a different approach to visit the city. There is a special session dedicated to sustainability of tourism, and there is a special project dedicated to named Enjoy and Respect Florence in order to adopt a new approach to your visit if you come in the city. And there is a section dedicated to the free download of material, digital material. The app has some added values, and okay, you can profile for a better response to users' needs. There is the real-time crowd monitor to skip the crowd. There are alternative suggestions and tips, and there is a travel diary for your better experience. There is a social media strategy supporting all the project, and all the social media strategy is developed also thanks to the collaboration of 41 municipalities. Thanks to the Feel Florence project and to the Smart Tourism approach, we had some awards in 2021 and 2022. And they are mainly based on this strategic and smart approach to manage the tourist flows in a cultural city. We had developed some strategic projects also through the partnership with private stakeholders such as Get Your Guide or Airbnb, in order to improve the partnership between private and public authorities, because the management of tourist flows is based on the cooperation. We have developed also a new project named Belong in order to help temporary residents or those tourists or students or entrepreneurs that remain in the city for longer periods. They need services, they need accommodations, they need a lot of different support that we have concentrated in a website dedicated to this. We have also a sort of digital storytelling, the digital book experience Florence, in which we have collected all different aspects of the Florence city. So not only art and culture, but also the green, but also the sustainable aspects, the accessibility of the city, and more events, music, but also modern architecture and all experiences linked to handicraft. So I'm in the time, so thank you very much. I tried to give you an overview of the project and of the situation and of our policies supporting the tourist promotion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carlotta. It's very innovative. And I was wondering, so now tourists are coming back. Do you know how many have downloaded the app, and how do you communicate as well towards tourists on how do they know that the app exists?
Okay, there are different systems to communicate the app. First of all, there are the official info points. Our official info points are actually 4 in the city, and they are actually really well visited. There are QR code spread all over the cities in order to give a suggestion. If you want more info, please download the app through the QR code, and also the official tourist map of the city of Florence. That also is the more requested material into the info point. In the map, there is the QR code, and our operators also suggest to download the app. This is the first mean to promote the app. We had also an increase. We saw that the downloads have increased also because we launched some influencing campaign before Easter. So through some Italian influencers, so the campaign were dedicated mainly to young targets. We had a really peak in the download in those days in which the influencers were on site.
Thank you, Carlotta. I think we have a question from Adrien. Adrien, the floor is yours.
Yes, hello. My name is Adrien, and yes, I'm in Toulouse, in France, and it was very interesting to hear Carlotta. Carlotta, yes, I have one question. You said this project is integrating 41 towns around Florence. How do you connect the city centers, the city center of Florence with these towns? For example, if it's overcrowded in the city center of Florence and you suggest to visit other towns, how can they easily access these towns? Did you have a special public transportation policy to make it easier to go to these towns? Can you explain me a bit about the public transportation system to make it easier for the tourists?
Okay, yes, thank you for this question. It's not a simple argument because the problem of public transportation exists in the metropolitan area of Florence also. So in this moment, we are working this way. We try to enhance the best, the must-see in every territory. It means that we pointed out the importance of the slow tourism. So we have 6 regional paths that overpass all the territory of the metropolitan area of Florence. And so we suggest itineraries that can be developed by bike or by walk, and including some of those 41 municipalities. Then we create other different itineraries, mainly maybe concentrated on some art and culture attractions that are reachable through the Tramvia. It's the high-speed train, the city high-speed train that link 4 municipalities up to now in around Florence. And also, for instance, we can create other kind of itineraries well linked by train. So we try to match the point of interest and the tourist attraction, creating different itineraries in which we detail also the best way to reach each point. Because we know that tourists has the problem of reach all these points.
Thank you, Carlotta. That's also a good example of cooperation, internal cooperation inside city administration between different departments. We will have to move on. If you have any other questions for Carlotta, Carlotta, you have to leave in 10 minutes, but your colleague Francesca will be there.
Yes,
and I know that the city of Florence is very eager to offer the opportunity to other cities willing to use or to replicate this application. You are happy to share tips and technical information. So if you have any question, please contact Carlotta. We will add her contact details in the chat. I
Yes,
see that we
absolutely.
have a last question, but I can't see who is asking. Yes, Jose, last question, and then we move on to Finland.
Okay, thank you so much. Good morning, Carlota. I have a question for you. It's about if you have any strategy to allow the access to handicap community.
The accessible
Exactly.
for the accessibility. Yes, we have developed a special project called KIMAP. You can find in the Phil Florence website, and maybe my colleague can publish the link in the chat, in which this association with whom we have worked has mapped the accessible itineraries for people with reduced mobility. Okay, so you have 4 tourist itineraries completely accessible for those people in the city, mainly in the city center. Okay, then another important added value that you can find in the Phil Florence project is that all point of interest, and we are talking about on more than 1,300 point of interest. In each point of interest, there is a part completely dedicated to accessibility, in which we update details about the full accessibility or the partial accessibility and so on. Also, we dedicated a lot of time, and we continue to dedicate a lot of time to the monitoring of the accessibility for what concerns accommodation. So we have the official tourist accommodation. We have all in the website, and for each one there is a special part dedicated to accessibility. And we monitor this point in order to have always update details.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Carlota. Thank you for your questions. And then
thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Let's move on to Finland, a very different context and a smaller city of Savonlinna. Our colleague Pellervo Kokkonen is there with us. Pellervo, you are a senior advisor on tourism and international cooperation for the city of Savonlinna. And your colleague Jana Komi is also with us, I believe. She is the CEO at Savonlinna Travel Limited. So the floor is yours. You will focus on how Savonlinna has rescued the tourism-dependent city and is developing innovative products, tourism products. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can you see my presentation in full screen mode?
We can see it, so feel free to move the slides directly.
All right, thank you. So really a very different context, and I wish we had the resources and visitors. Of course, we need to be sort of much more spontaneous in many things that we are doing, but in the presentation, we will tell a little bit about the context of Savonlinna and the COVID situation in 2020 and 21, and what kind of innovation activity it facilitated through the Savonlinna Live concept. And I will let my colleague Jana tell about the activities, but I will, on my behalf, illustrate the policy context a little bit more. So we are located in eastern Finland, the largest lake in Finland, 4th largest lake in Europe. Lake Saimaa is surrounding us. Savonlinna definitely is the cultural tourism destination in Finland because of the cultural heritage attractions, but most of all due to the opera festival, and that has also spurred a series of events for the summer season. The opera festival was established already in 1912 by Aino Akte, but there was a pause, and it was sort of revived in the 1960s and has since then attracted a lot of huge audiences and renowned performers. So we have at the Opera Festival, the venue is the castle of Olavinlinna from 1475, and it really attracts soloist singers and notable foreign opera companies also visit, but the own productions also are legendary. Here you can see have a short glimpse of this year's. Now the Opera Festival is doing a comeback after cancellation for 2 years in a row, and you can imagine what a recipe for disaster that was when the lockdown came in March 2020, and the Opera Festival had to be cancelled. Of course, our surrounding nature is also a major attraction in Savonlinna. In 2019, we had roughly 300,000. This is for the city only, but for the region it's a slightly bigger number. But we had roughly 300,000 registered bed nights, of which 32% were foreign, and the occupancy rate for the sort of quite seasonal destination, I think, was decent at the hotels. We were developing accessibility and the sales with tour operators, and new cultural attractions were also coming. Most notably the sort of very large cave that was developed as a center for digital art. But there have been a lot of problems now due to the COVID-19 pandemic, of course, as you can imagine. In Finland, of course, we don't have the large medieval cathedrals. It's a little bit more cultural heritage assets are a little bit more pronounced in the area of living cultural heritage, and like sauna and traditional crafts and activities. But there is some prehistoric heritage, rock art, and of course buildings have been wooden, so there are not so many left, but the ones that are there are very valuable for us. We also ran for the bid for the European Capital of Culture, and that was a sort of very important in mobilizing the actors in the region. So in 2020, when the lockdown was introduced, we faced a sort of imminent loss of 270,000 bed nights for the summer, and maybe 20 million tourism revenue. And the not only the Opera Festival was cancelled, but also in June and August, many other minor festivals and events. And due to the closures, lockdowns of international travel, there was also a risk, of course, obvious loss of some 75,000 registered bed nights in accommodation. So quite a number of international visitors stayed away. In terms of policy, we have been doing sort of very close cooperation with the regional council and the development and the funding authorities, and we were able in just one and a half month we were able to devise the Savonlinna live concept to alleviate the effects of the pandemic. And there the response of the program authorities of the European structural funds, that was really effective and really very helpful. So, but life went on in Savonlinna, and people nevertheless met in during the summer in Savonlinna because we have space and clean environment. The financial framework for Savonlinna Live was in the form of three projects and a grant from City of Savonlinna totaling 800,000 euros. And the main objectives were supporting the business development and innovation by the companies and cooperation between the actors, promoting to the relevant target groups as a safe, natural and water-based destination with a lot of space and also the sort of health, safety and revitalizing the city. So, sorry, just a moment. If Jana is ready, I think it is your turn to tell about the actions of Savonlinna Live. Please go ahead and tell me when I change the slide.
Yeah, oh, I can, mä voin jakaa täältä kautta sitä, niin ota se pois, mun on helpompi.
Okay.
Yeah. So, hello everyone, I'm Jana Komi from Savonlinna Travel. Savonlinna Travel is the Savonlinna region's DMO. So we visit Savonlinna is our website, so please check it if you are interested in. So I share now my screen, so then you can see.
Yes.
Peller will talk about these objectives and actions, and now I come to actions because the situation when the COVID started, all our entrepreneurs, they were really afraid because for us this summer in our area, the summer plays kind of key role in our SME field. And tourism, most of the entrepreneurs, they make almost half of the income during the summertime. And now when all the big events were cancelled, like Opera Festival, we did have to do something. And what we did was this concept of Savonlinna Live. First, we did business mapping. I think all the support what we gave for entrepreneurs were really liked because we had 5 employees in this 2020 project, and they discussed with 150 entrepreneurs and tried to figure out what their needs are. And then, of course, as a result, we made this Saima Office Savonlinna telework concept, because many people from Helsinki area region, they wanted to work outside the office, and this was a good place for them. And this business coaching, topics included pricing, marketing, distribution channels, for productizations, yes. But the main thing was these events what we made. So we supported pop-up events and experiences. For the support was meant for creative industries and for event producers and even the locals. And these pilots were selected on basis of open public tendering, and 77,000 euros was granted for different kind of events. And then we also created new events with our with some associations like Sauna Festival, Supporting Festival, Sapas, it's like tapas, but it's Saima tapas kind of food festival. And mainly all these events, they took place outdoors, because people really didn't want to go inside. Like we gave the event organizers the possibility to use the Olavi Linna, but only few of them used it because people or the customers, tourists, they didn't want to go inside. And because we have water everywhere here and very nice places outside where we could arrange these events, they were really popular. And of course, we put money for marketing, for kind of domestic marketing, so mainly in social media and of course, and then we made with the bus company cooperation with them, and then we created new platform for events. This is a new event calendar. We did have the old one, but this one was much better. And then also we made some video materials like virtual tours and things like that for marketing. And this was in 2020. Sorry. And then one very this weekly activities program. This was very popular because these activities, they were guaranteed that they take place even if there is one person. They will help these. There were yoga and canoeing and different kind of events during the week. And this is something what we continue from this on. It was very successful project for us. And then the other one was, of course, the implementing this COVID-19 safety standards for enterprises, and we kind of wanted to make it a little bit different way than the other because we have a lot of room here. That's why we made this kind of script instructions for entrepreneurs, and they were well welcomed, even though these safety instructions were you could get them everywhere. And then these are few events what we made. There was forest bath, sauna festival. And then in 21, the program support was smaller. It was something like 100,000 euros, but then we get money from the city of Savonlinna for this event support and for marketing and other subsidies like this Savonlinna mornings event. It was used to held by the opera festival, but we made it lasted 1 month, and then there was one exhibition support. But this event support was, I would say, that was very important for all the creative industry actors and also event producers. So we got altogether 75 applications from 60 different actors, and we supported 67 events. The amounts, they were between 100 euros to 5,000 euros, but average was 1,100. And there were the events were organized by 34 companies, 29 associations, and 12 individuals. So there has been almost 200 separate events on different days. And of course, we used money for marketing quite a lot. Also, this virtual trip to Savonlinna. Sub yoga, because we have water. It was very popular event. And what happened? First year, like here you can see the number. The July the growth of domestic tourists was 32%, almost 33%. And we could reach the same number of monthly nights spent in this area like in the year 1990. And also this the same thing happened in August, but then the restrictions came back in September, if I recall right. But then 21, this was it was like the 2020 was very good year for us, really good year, the summer. But then this 21, we kind of recovered from the COVID during last summer, because now the total number of overnights even grew this year, last year, versus 2019. Like here you can see, this is the subtotal of number of what happened this year. So I would say that it was quite huge meaning for us that we could get money for this event support and for marketing, especially because all the big events were cancelled in this area. And I also see that it made also our entrepreneurs think they in businesses kind of new way, because they were so used that the opera festival customers, they come every year. It's you really don't have to do nothing, and now they really had to focus on what they are offering for tourists and think about the clients, what they need, and so kind of COVID brought us something good.
Jana, yeah. we have reached the 15 minutes allowed
Okay.
to the presentation. Can we come to conclusion? But I think the most
Yes.
important is really future perspectives. So in 1 minute.
Yeah, so now what we are looking after, now we have new entrepreneurs here. We have Savonniemi kind of investments in Savonniemi Arena and then House of Ulof events venue. And especially the events are the thing what we are focusing on now. And then we have new projects going on like Fly Savonlinna, focus on the foreign markets, especially German-speaking DACH area, and also this kind of nature activities and producing new products for nature activities like cycling routes and things like that. Pellervo, you can comment also if you want.
Okay, thank you. I think that was also really, as already mentioned, it was really important sort of contribution and a wake-up call for doing innovation and product development and sort of continuous promotion and product development. I think that was something that we learned from the experience. That, of course, previously and traditionally the planning is done by sort of by season, but now we learned that you need to do weekly and even daily planning and promotion. So I think that is something that we learned, and we are certainly going to benefit from these lessons in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, and it's time for us to move on to conclusions in 2 minutes. So coming back to the main learning points, in terms of trends, we heard that tourists and tourism firms are racing back to where we were post-COVID, sometimes non-mindful and non-sustainable. The question of whose city it is a key one. And there are, I think, from what we heard this morning, 2 ways to further explore. So the first direction is towards local governance and partnership. I will remember Jan's call for local policymakers to develop long-term cultural tourism strategies with local and taking into account the quality of tourism experience together with citizens living in cultural cities and city centers. Identifying and working with local stakeholders, including with colleagues from the tourism industry. Develop new partnerships with communities, so it's not tourists against locals, with territorial actors, as we saw in the Florence examples, and sometimes maybe with private companies. That's something we could further discuss. And the second way and area to further think about is about the improving the usage of data and knowledge management, first for better policy making, and then to help tourist flows and spreading visitors, to adjust the type and quality of public services provided by cities, to increase the feeling of safety and well-being, both for visitors and for locals, and also to improve the management of public spaces. So I would like to thank all our speakers and thank all of you who attended the webinar. If you would like to stay posted with Cultural Heritage in Action updates, please send an email to culturalheritageinAction@eurocities.eu. You can also receive our newsletter. There will be further webinar in the coming months and also peer learning visits that we are preparing for city and regions representatives to learn together. So please keep an eye on the website, and it was a pleasure to see you online, and see you soon in a future webinar or in a peer learning visits. Bye.